Hey guys, it's Jenny Silver, and today I want to talk to those of you in the state of California about the state's rental relief program. With the end of the federal level pandemic unemployment benefits, many of you are looking for ways to get other assistance. I want you to understand that you may qualify to receive up to 100% of your back owed rent or future rent payments, as well as utility assistance if you qualify for this program. The program provides 100% of back owed rent for dates as early as April 1st, 2020, as well as providing assistance for future rent payments. Additionally, utility assistance is also available. In order to qualify, you must be either a renter or a landlord that has been impacted by COVID-19. Additionally, applying as a renter, you must be income eligible. Now, they state here that the state will calculate this when you apply because the qualifications can be a bit confusing. In order to qualify, tenants must make less than 80% of the local median income. Now, this varies from county to county, and it's a little bit confusing to calculate. So, if you do not know, apply, and they will tell you if you qualify or not. Additionally, income eligible applicants may qualify regardless of their immigration status, and they are not required to show proof of citizenship. Housing is Key lists the recommended paperwork that you have on hand, but they also state very clearly that if you do not have any of these forms of paperwork, to please still apply, that they most likely will still be able to help you as long as you can provide proof of identification. Now, I know that many of you have a lot of questions surrounding California's rental assistance program. So today I was able to talk with Jessica Hayes, who is the Disaster Recovery Branch Chief with California's Department of Housing and Community Development. Many applicants have prioritized paying their rent, and so they are up to date on their payments, but what they need help with currently is future payments. What's the best way for them to obtain help with their future rent?
Submit an application. So in the application, you're not limited to arrears. You can also request up to 3 months of rent, so starting from your current month and then 2 months to the future. So if folks needed assistance with October, they can ask for October, November, December. Very soon, we will open up the month of January, so they could request assistance for November, December, January. They don't have to have arrears to come in for assistance.
Months. Is there a special process, a special place they should be on the lookout for that? Do they need to call in for assistance with that? Any guidelines with that?
So they're absolutely welcome to call in for assistance at any time. And we recommend that. I will say that if folks are sensitive to wait times, first thing in the morning, last thing in the evening, and the weekend, that's the time to call. But in reality, when they're looking at that application, so when you're actually in that field for rental assistance requested, you click the yes button that you need rental assistance. What it's going to do is it's going to drop down a whole bunch of months. The application form gets really long, really fast. And the reason it does that is that we are required to report on a per month basis to the federal government. So we would love to simplify that. We can't because of our reporting requirements. But what they would need to do is they would need to go down the list and start with the month they're requesting. So if they're requesting arrears, let's say we're requesting arrears from March of 2021. So they would want to go all the way down to March 2021, April 2021. If they are just looking for current and prospective, they would want to come all the way down to October, November, December. Okay. So they need to just scroll down. You could ignore all of those other months, just leave them blank and come down to the months that you're requesting. And similarly, if they need just a series of months, so maybe they don't need current and prospectives, but they do need arrears for a limited amount of time, just complete those months in there. So just identify what months align with where you are unable to pay.
Okay, and is the application similar across the board, even for those counties that have their own separate application and process? Is it similar? Is it comparable?
It should be comparable. We all have the same federal reporting requirement, and that drives a lot of the formatting.
So similarly, if someone needs just utility assistance, but they do not need help with housing assistance, rental relief, is it the same process, the same application? Is there anything that they should be on the lookout for if they're only trying to get utility assistance?
So a couple of tips. It is the same general process. On the rent page, they'll just click that no button and it won't drop down anything, so they can skip on to the next page. When they get to the utility type that they're looking for, You'll want to make sure you try to align the utility type that you're looking for, that you're asking for assistance with utility type in the program. So for instance, water and sewer are broken out, gas and electric are broken out, trash is broken out. There's another category that people can use for internet, or if they have a setup where maybe they're getting, like they have gas and electric through PG&E and then they've got a supplementary solar bill or something like that, they can use that other category for that. Couple of things: if utilities are included in your rent, don't upload them separately. We pay those directly to the landlord. So I know that a lot of times trash and water, sometimes sewer, depends on kind of how it's structured. Those will be built into the rent cost. So you don't want to request those separately.
Good.
The other thing is, a lot of times there are consolidated utilities billing. So you'll get a single bill and it will have multiple utilities on it. Just pick a category and throw that in as a consolidated. You don't have to break it out. We'll break it out on the back end when we go to pay it.
Once someone has submitted their application, once they have whatever documentation is needed submitted, can you describe the back end process of exactly what an applicant should expect in terms of what's going on behind the scenes and time frame? I know you have a lot of applications that are being processed. So a lot of people are wondering what to expect once things are submitted.
Yeah, absolutely. So what happens on the back end is once an application is submitted, the first thing that happens is it gets assigned to a case manager, and that case manager starts to review the application. If an application is perfect, right, it has all the information in it, everything is easy to identify, the applicant will never get contacted. We won't reach out to them. They won't hear from us. What they will get is they'll get a notification that there's a check coming their way. So perfect application, you don't hear from us, we just process it on through. If there are questions about the application, or if a document, maybe somebody uploaded the first page but not the second, stuff like that, then that case manager will reach out to them and their application will move to a category called applicant waiting response. So that means that we have a question out to them. They'll get that question via email, or they'll get a phone call, or both, depending on how long. We do put a timeline for responses. We want folks to take those responses seriously to help make sure that those applications continue to get processed, because this can be a major delay in getting an application through the system. Once that response is completed, then the next step, the application goes into the landlord component. So the federal government, the federal legislation that governs this program requires that we coordinate with landlords to give them an opportunity to participate in the program, to validate the amount of rent owed, to validate the lease, and receive payment directly. We're obligated to take a minimum of 5 days to do that and to make 3 tries. So goes into that applicant, that goes into that pending landlord aspect of the application status. A lot of folks see that.
Yeah.
We then start to reach out to the landlord. Sometimes it hangs out in that status a little bit longer than folks would expect, more than 5 days. When that happens, usually what's happened is the landlord has said, yes, I would like to engage. I would like to participate. I need a little bit of extra time to get my information submitted. Having your landlord participate almost always speeds up the overall process, because after that landlord participation phase, we go into a quality control, quality review. So then there's a second set of eyes on the application. That phase goes really fast if your landlord is participating. It goes a little bit slower if the landlord is not participating, because there needs to be a very, very clean audit trail showing we've done our due diligence on the project.
Okay.
After that, it goes in for payment. Under an ideal circumstance, payment from application to payment should be inside of 30 days. We have an exceptional amount of volume right now, so it's taking a little bit longer. It's taking about 5 weeks. But we have also substantially increased our staffing. We have one of the most robust programs in the nation in terms of staffing. So we do expect to be back inside that 30 days here in the next week or so.
Okay. Yeah, many have reported that pending landlord status. So that was one of the big questions that people have had is, what does this mean? Because I thought I could apply as a tenant. So that answers that question, that you are reaching out and you try to see if they'll participate first under that federal guideline. Now, if someone is stuck in that pending status or any of the other statuses along the way for longer than that 30-day period, what can they do to either check on the process and actually connect with someone if they can't get through the phone line, they're not receiving a call back, or to help speed it up? Because unfortunately, many are, and I know you have such a volume requesting this assistance right now, but many are reporting that they have applied back in as early as April, May, or June, and they still aren't moving through the process. So what could someone do if they're stuck in one of those pending situations?
So there's a couple of things they can do, and they can do this regardless. This will help speed up in general. And then there's a specific thing to do if you think your application is stalled out. So the first thing is to make sure that you let your landlord know you're going to apply, right? Give your landlord a heads up. If you see your application is stuck in that pending landlord status, shoot your landlord an email, a text message. We have letter templates you can use to inform them. So communicating with your landlord and doing it in a written format, if you can, is going to be really helpful. It's also a really good way to ensure that you retain your tenant protections. So it helps you stay protected from eviction, but it also will help speed up the process. So you'll want to do that. The second thing is check your email. Check your email regularly. Sometimes our messages end up in spam filters and junk email. So you want to make sure that you are checking those on a regular basis. If you get an email from us, move it to the approved category so that you get future communications. We have a lot of folks who get frustrated that something is stalled out, and the reality is they've had an email sitting in their spam box for a while now, and they've gotten text messages from us, but they didn't recognize the text number. And so we've tried to contact them and haven't gotten in touch with them, and so we haven't been able to move. So do those two things. Those two things will help a lot to make sure something doesn't get into that stalled out category. If it's stalled out and you've responded to any requests from your case management, you contacted them and communicated with them, they are the best course of action for a stalled out application. So if you know who your case manager is and you've got their email address, and our case managers do reach out directly, it's not a generic email, you get an email from a person, then communicate with them, start with them and say, it looks like my application is stalled out in this category, it's been there for a long time. Am I missing something? What can I do? If you haven't heard from your case manager because you submitted a perfect application and it should have just flown right through the system, the call center is generally speaking the best approach. Again, call on the weekend, call on mornings or evenings, and let them know you need to escalate. When you let them know that you need to escalate, they'll submit a support ticket. So they'll actually put a ticket in for you that will escalate the issue up through the management. But you got to let them know that that's what you want them to do. They're not going to default to that.
Is there a higher level authority, someone that they can follow through with, that's the next step above, or an alternative, or is that call center the one and only?
The call center really is the target. You can call our appointment center if you need additional assistance and work with one of our local partners. But I know that folks have tried to call HCD. We have contracted a lot of this work out. And so when you call HCD, we don't actually have anybody who can assist. We have a very, very lean staff on this program intentionally so that it can move quickly. It's kind of the offset, right? When you're working with a government program, if you have a ton of staff on it, it's not going to be a fast program. It has to be a fast program. So use the call center, but you can escalate through the call center, right? You can request that they issue a support ticket. You can request that a manager call back, and then take advantage of weekends, mornings, and evenings. We track our call wait times on a almost hourly basis, right? So we're constantly watching where our call wait times are, and we often have no wait time on the weekends. So if you're having a hard time getting through, try that weekend time. Try that 7:30 a.m. I know it's painful, but try that 7:30 a.m. call time. The call center is open from 7 to 7.
If someone does not have a formal lease, if they are renting from someone, are they going to be able to apply for and receive any sort of assistance?
Absolutely. You don't have to have a formal lease. You just have to have some evidence that you have a rental agreement, right? And that could be anything from like a letter, a statement saying there's rent owed. It could be, we've seen text messages, landlord texting, you owe rent for this month, and this month.
Okay.
It just has to be some evidence that there is a rent relationship, and we'll take pretty much any evidence folks are willing to provide us. We're super flexible in that.
Okay, that's great. So now the most common status delays that people are seeing that they're reporting on my channel is that they're seeing the pending landlord approval for several months at a time, which we already covered, but they are also seeing denied missing verification, but they weren't given any additional information and they're unsure how to provide what is needed, and they also can't get through at the call center. What steps would you recommend with that?
So I reached out to the team when I got your questions in advance. I reached out to the team because that was a new denial category for me, and which is saying something because I drafted them. So it shouldn't have been a surprise. That is a
Someone
category.
snuck one in.
Yeah, they snuck one in. That is a denial category that has actually only started on Monday. So what that generally means is that we've been trying for a long time to get you to respond to a request for additional information. That's a applicant pending information category, and there has been no response. And so we have to close that out. But this is something we've only just started doing because of just the total application volume. So I would double check with folks to see where they were getting that one from. We have been doing denials almost exclusively on households who just weren't eligible. They were over income.
Okay. The next status question is awaiting supervisor review is another one that was noted as being a longer several months wait term. Is there anything to note with that status?
So that is a status where it's gone, the application has gone through our quality control process, and they've identified something that is flagging for them. So it could be that there's a missing document. It could be that a document flagged as potentially having been altered in some way. It could mean that some of the information that was provided is not aligning. So, sometimes we'll see things like somebody uses somebody else's email to initiate the application, and then that's the email that signs the application, but it doesn't have any relationship to the actual applicant, and it's not identified as a designee. So, now we've got some sort of disjointed connection. So then we have to bring in management staff, and then they have to go in and unwind it. So this is why it's really important as folks are looking at the application to make sure that, you read the attestations and that the true and correct, making sure that you've uploaded the correct document, that you've identified what section of your bill you need to submit or what section of your rent statement. And then if you're going to have someone assist you in your application, you identify them as a designee or a representative. Because we want to make sure that we can go back in and do a clean audit check on these. So.
Okay. Now, a couple additional questions that weren't in that document, but since I have just hopefully a few more minutes with you, I'll throw in. If someone needs to edit the information submitted, many have reached the end of their unemployment benefits recently with the cutoffs. Is there any way that they can go in and edit that information? Should they be providing updated information to make sure that they're compliant and receive as much as possible? Is there any way that they should be editing this?
So yes, potentially. And then some of it we're kind of automating. So I'll talk that through for just a second. So if you've submitted your application and it is in application submitted status, but has not been moved to review status, and you need to update it, calling the call center is the best way, and they can open it back up for you and you can go in and make changes. That's a really quick transaction. Again, call center volume, totally recognize that is what it is, but that is the fastest way to get it reopened. If you are in application review status, and let's just say it's a fairly common scenario, you submitted your application last month, or it's been 45 days since you submitted. It's one of those applications that got kind of stuck in our backlog. When the case manager gets into that application and they see that there is a gap, they're going to reach out to you to see if you need to fill in the gap, right? So if a case manager reaches out to you, again, that's where you want to make sure you have your email allowed to accept information from our program. But the case manager will reach out and say, do you want to add months? And then you can add months. You can at any time call the call center and say, yeah, something happened and I think I uploaded the wrong document. I think I requested the wrong month. I think I did something wrong, and let them know, and they will communicate to the case manager that it's also that it needs to be corrected there. So the call center is the best path. And again, weekends, mornings and evenings.
Now, in terms of the total length of possible assistance that someone could receive, what is the maximum in total amount of months that someone could potentially receive?
Yeah. So based on federal statute, right? Because this is the federal statute. We had 2 rounds of funding. The first round capped it at 15 months. The second round added an additional 3 months. So in theory, a single household could receive up to 18 months of assistance. Now, recognizing that the first eligible period for assistance in the program is April of 2020. If you've been unable to pay rent since April of 2020, we've hit 18 months, all right, at the end of September. So that is, at this point, kind of the outside limit. I will say that while we still have money and we're still processing and we're working to help as many people as possible, we will eventually run out of funds. And so not every household is necessarily going to get a full 18 months of assistance. So folks need assistance that, we encourage folks to get applications in as soon as possible.
Will someone who applies be approved for their entire duration if they were eligible for that up to 18 months at once, or do they need to kind of reapply, recertify, et cetera, at a certain point in time?
Yeah, so that's a great question, actually. So the way that it works, and this is again based on federal requirement, is that you ask for your arrears, and then you can get up to 3 months of current and perspectives. So let's just say, for example, you had 3 months of arrears and you asked for 3 months of current perspectives. You would then have to come in and recertify your income to validate that your income information is accurate, to ask for another 3 months. And you can get 3-month increments up to a total of 18 months at that point. So you can't necessarily get full 18 months in bulk. And folks will notice this when they go into our application, that there will only ever be 3 months from the current date available open for them to ask for prospective rents. Now, if you were unable to pay rent starting April of 2020, and you're asking for the full assistance, then you will get the full assistance in a block amount. But if you're looking for, you only have a couple of months that you were missing in arrears and you're looking for perspectives, then it's going to be in 3-month increments. And that's a federal requirement.
If someone applied for rental assistance only or utility assistance only, and now things have changed, for example, they've lost their benefits with unemployment now and they need additional assistance, is there a way for them to add that into their application? Would they be able to call into customer service and have them add that in? Do they have to wait a certain time period to request it?
Yeah, so if somebody's already received assistance and they need additional assistance, we have a recertification process, and we're working on actually revamping it to speed it up and get rid of some of the barriers, because we're getting a lot of feedback that folks are having a hard time accessing that process. So hopefully very soon, there will be a whole bunch of messaging going out to folks saying that they are eligible to reapply for additional assistance if they have not maxed out their 18-month allocation. So, but yeah, they can actually come in and say, recognizing I got rent and now I need rent plus utilities, or recognizing I got utilities, now I need, rents to assist. I will say utilities, we only do arrears. So you can't ask for prospective utility payments because we don't know what prospective utility utilization will be. And we're not going to try and guess on what folks are going to need in terms of utility payments. So that will only be in arrears, but yeah, they should get the opportunity to get a recertification, come in and update their information. And if folks haven't already gotten that, and I know we have about 4,500 of them already out, but they should start getting messaging about that very soon.
Okay, and then I am not certain that you are going to, I'm throwing you extra questions now. Last one, I promise. I'm not certain that this is under your knowledge scope. Mm-hmm. I'm guessing that it is, but if it's not, please feel free to skip. Now that eviction moratorium has ended in the state of California with that September 30th end date, For those who have applied for rental assistance, to my understanding, there is a provision that through March of 2022, they are potentially protected from eviction as long as that rental assistance is in process. Are they, if that is correct, are they under a restriction that they still must pay that 25% of back owed rent from that time period where it was effective? If they're in process for
So
rental assistance?
that's a great question. I actually get that one a lot. So let's talk this through just for a little bit. So the way that the 25% piece worked is that was applicable through September 30th, 2021. So folks had until September 30th, 2021 to pay that 25% of their rent. And what that meant was that they could not be evicted for the unpaid rents during that period. They could have another action taken against them to recoup that, where the landlord could try to recoup that financially, but they couldn't be evicted for it. After October 30th, 2021, that 25% was no longer applicable. Not only was it too late to pay it and get the protection, but it no longer needed to be paid moving forward because that protection no longer existed. So just like the declaration form, the declaration of COVID impact form, those two pieces really predominantly went away at the beginning of October. The COVID impact form does have a little bit of a role, and that is if a household never submitted it and they needed to, they may still be able to submit that directly to the courts if they find themselves in an eviction proceeding. But that at that point, that's at that point it's very touch and go. So hopefully folks submitted that, as they were going along. So yeah, no more 25%. In terms of how that affects tenant protections, we still recommend folks, if pay as much as you can towards your rents, do the best you can to stay current. We do not encourage folks to go into debt to pay rent. Come to us. This program is here for you. But yeah, that aspect of it has expired at this point. So now it's on to the next.
If someone did not meet that 25% payment requirement, and they have applied to rental assistance, but they haven't received it yet. So essentially none of that back owed rent was paid to the landlord, and they are now under threat of eviction. They can be evicted, or is that under protection because their assistance application is in?
I apologize, my dog's about to go off.
Sorry. Take your time.
It's everybody's coming home from work, so he feels like he needs to talk to every single one of the neighbors.
I'll have a naked toddler run through here in a second.
If they have submitted an application, right, that in effect should stay them from any further eviction proceedings. So the application is intended to stall and hopefully stop the eviction proceeding, because it should get rid of the need for the eviction. So submitting the application is the key piece to retain those protections through March.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, and it doesn't, the dependency is not on whether or not the application's been processed. The dependency is on the application being submitted, which is why I say, let your landlord know that's what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because if they know, then they should not be pursuing an eviction, and they actually cannot attest to the things that they need to attest to submit the information to get a summons for an unlawful detainer.
Okay, all right, that's a very good clarification, because many were confused about that one piece of it. If they did not pay that 25%, but they did submit it, they were unclear on that. So that's a good clarification.
Yeah, and I got to be honest, I don't blame them. The law it's a lot to read, and it's a lot to parse together, especially when the pieces are in different places throughout. Yeah. So completely understand confusion on that one.
Okay, all right. Is there anything that you want to share with viewers about the program? Anything that I can help you get a message out about?
We just encourage folks to apply. Like, we recognize, there's challenges with the call center. It's going to take us a little bit of time to get through the applications, but really what we really want is folks to apply. If they need help, apply. If they went into debt to keep their rents current, and now they're carrying both, extra credit card debt or family debt, and they're trying to stay current on their rents, apply. Let us help with your current rent so you can deal with that debt. So we want as many folks as possible to apply. And then, I know that the call center is kind of a struggle right now. It will get better as things, as we continue to add staff and are continuing to process through. So don't give up. We recognize that folks are anxious and frustrated. Get your application in. That should protect you a lot. And then, continue to stay on the team about the call center. We'll do the best we can to keep that available up for them. I really appreciate you guys doing this. This is helpful. And
Absolutely. Thank you so much. It's very, very helpful on our end. And with the amount of people that just fell off that cliff with their benefits, PEC, PUA ending, FedEd ending, they need help fast. So
it's been
I really
so
appreciate
hard. It's been so hard for people. And I just have to say, we recognize the anxiety and we recognize the fear. And we want to make sure we help as many people as possible. But this has been a very hard period for a lot of people.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.